Okay, this is just a quick intro or overview for resource admin for application owners. Resource admin is an EmpowerID microservice application that, depending upon your role in the system, will allow you to see and manage resources for which you are responsible for. Now, there can be many different resource types, and the types that you can see and manage are based on your role. In our case, we're focusing on applications. For application owners and deputies, resource admin would be the primary user interface for them to onboard and manage their applications. So in the interface, if you're an application owner role, you would only see applications where you were the owner. If you have an application administrator role, you can, as Patrick here can see, all applications across all systems. So in this test system, Patrick can see all applications. But again, as an application owner, you would only see the applications for which you were responsible or the owner. You can see those applications. You can also choose to onboard an application. You might have the ability to onboard an Azure application, which creates an app registration in Azure at the end of the process, the wizard process. Or you might be able to onboard a non-Azure application, which we typically refer to as a PBAC application, or policy-based access control application. You also have access to workflows, which allow you to manage applications and also run some of the same workflows here for onboarding applications as well. The list of your applications shows the high-level view. You can see who's the responsible party or the business designated owner, non-technical owner for the application, which is often used in recertification. And of course, you can choose from the context menu to perform contextual workflows passing in the application for management, and the list may vary depending upon, again, your access rights and roles. You can also click to view the details of your application, and this will display the user interface for managing various aspects of your application. In this case, this is a non-Azure application, so it doesn't show any of the Azure-specific user interface elements like app roles, scopes, or other Azure or Entra-specific UI. Here we see an overview of our application, some of the details on it. We can see the access request policy, which is the policy that governs the approval process. Whether you're in your organization, most organizations, you'll typically be using PBAC approval, which means that you can create approval rights to grant access to who can approve for various rights or roles. An approval right granted to them adds them to a virtual approval group. And you can change that policy to one that points to that PBAC approval. When you're designing the application, you'll define the definitions. So the definition of your application rights or permissions. These are the lowest level. And these, of course, in the system are per type. So if you imagine your application, it might have various types of things you're protecting. Invoices, purchase orders, customers. These are just meant to represent those types, those tables, those entities in your application. You can create new ones. Or if your application is very simple, you can create one called application, and all your rights are just application rights. They're not really specific about a resource type. In this example, we have checking, savings, and then app resources, which are resources in the application, like maybe the user interface elements or other components you might want to control that aren't related to the business objects, checking, and savings. Here you can create the rights. The rights, of course, have a resource type, and they can be requestable or published in the IAM shop. So some may be assignable to people by admins or app owners, and some may be requestable, which can go through a self-service approval process. You can also bundle up app rights into app roles or role definitions, which are simply bundles of rights to make it easy to assign them or request them all at once. App management roles allows you to have management roles, which are an EmpowerID concept, which bundle access across different systems. So if you wanted to grant app rights or app roles plus other EmpowerID access or groups in Entra or groups in SAP together, then a management role allows you to cross those system boundaries. And that might not be used in a lot of cases. And then the last part are the app-owned field types. So if your application is simple, it may only have rights, or it may even have rights and roles. Now, and if your application requires fine-grained authorization, that means that when you grant access, let's say, to view a savings balance. You're not coarse-grained and have that to view all savings balances. It's fine-grained, meaning that it has to have some type of scope or condition to constrain which saving balances, which checking accounts, which ones can you withdraw from, which ones can you view. And that's handled in the PBAC world, policy-based access control, or ABAC world, using attributes. Some systems call them field types, as we do. Some call them scopes, and some call them ABAC attributes. So in this case, you can create your own app-specific field types, and that means that they're owned by the application. They don't show up in anywhere else for other applications to use. You can also have global ones. So if you have a list of countries, maybe that makes sense as a global cross-application field type that you only have to define once and share. But then again, you have to rely that other people might modify the values. So in this case, if you want them to be completely owned by your application, you can create app-owned field types. And here we have service offering, which is one where you can say, which is it what type is it, a mortgage? Is it a car loan? So what type of service is it? And then maybe it's important in your rules for transaction value. How much are they withdrawing from checking? So these allow you to create these definitions, and then you can link them to the rights that need to use them. So for example, the withdrawal from checking right, we've linked a couple of field types, transaction value and account number. So when you're requesting this or when you're being granted access, they might limit your transaction value, and they might say that you can only do it for your banking accounts, not for all the banking accounts, only those that have been associated with you. And we'll get into that association with you in another video. It's more person-relative assignment, where the access is going to look at your values, in this case your bank account numbers, and it's going to restrict it based upon that, not based upon specific values in the assignment. So we link those scopes or field types, and of course then on the access request or assignments, when you assign one of these rights directly or in a role definition, it knows that it has to prompt in the user interface to show that to be selected. You can assign your owners and assign multiple owners which have RBAC ownership rights over your application, whatever you've granted. Typically it allows them to manage aspects of the configuration. You can assign deputies, as we saw, which is just a lower level RBAC access assignment. Direct assign locations, put your application somewhere in the Empower ID resource tree, which is used to control who can see it, who might inherit access to it, like an admin, and how you categorize it. So we've gone through all these different actions. Now, of course, on each tab, you have contextual workflows. So if I'm on the overview, I can run certain workflows which are contextual to the application itself. If I am, in the assignments, we actually missed the assignments. So in addition to the definitions, then this is the usage of them. So in the IM shop, users can request access, and it can go for approval. From resource admin, the app owners would see and manage the assignments directly. Now they still go to the shopping cart so they can do risk analysis and approvals, but you can manage it directly. So in this case, you can assign app rights to people, to groups, to Empower ID management roles, to business roles and locations, or to query-based collections called set groups. You can edit them. You can view the field types that were assigned. You can edit the field type values. You can remove the assignment. Of course, you can add new assignments to app rights, to people, or to the other assignee types we mentioned. You can also view role definition assignments if your app bundles rights into roles, which is optional. You can also view a person-centric view. So what this does is it lists all the people who have been configured as eligible for your application. That way, it might not be all the users, it might be company by company, only some companies or partners are eligible for this application, so only they would show up here. And you can easily see quickly, do they have any type of assignment, any rights or roles, very quickly which ones do and which ones don't. And it allows you to edit it from a person perspective to assign that access. And then of course, as we mentioned, if the access or the right is scoped with a field type, then it allows you to pick the specific values. So in this case, maybe only for car and mortgages, but not small business, they can view their balances. and that would go to the cart, and they could be assigned, of course, multiple rights, each with their own scope values or field type values. Role definition assignment from a person view is the same thing. It's just the assignment or unassignment of role definitions, and then of course those contain rights which might require field type values or scope values to be selected. Those would go through the shopping cart and would go for approval based upon your access request policy for those rights or roles and the approval policies that those mention. So this is just a quick overview of Resource Admin as an app owner and how you might use it. In future videos, we'll show you the various how-tos, how to onboard a new application, how to configure the application, creating your own field types, creating your own rights and role definitions, managing the approval process. So this has been a quick overview. I hope you found it helpful.